Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Roti, joined alongside my good friend Will Wright. And today we are talking about the Chicago Bears defensive line and why they are improved and much better, improved, faster, stronger, wiser. I have my good friend Will Wright with me to go down with it. Will, thank you again for joining the show.
Nick, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We got new linebackers, a stronger secondary, and overall a better defensive line. All three units of the defense is going to help benefit each other in a ton of ways. And Will, before we begin, I mean, what do you think this defensive line is going to do out of the gate before we break it down into more detail?
Compared to last year, I think we're going to get way more interior pressure, and I think we're going to do a better job of stopping the run.
And the Bears were 32nd last year in run defense, thanks to that really bad defensive line. And I'm going to go through last year's starters or just the overall defense for you, Will, kind of break it all down along with going into this year's starters. And then we're just going to have to chop it up because we both know that they're going to be a lot better than last year. So last year's starters at left edge, we had Al-Qaeda Muhammad, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 3 quarterback hits. We had Robert Quinn that started the season with 1 sack, 5 tackles for loss, and 5 quarterback hits before he got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. We had Justin Jones, who was by far the best defensive lineman with 3 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, and 7 quarterback hits. And Angelo Blackson with 0 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 quarterback hit. The depth guys were Dominque Robinson, Trevis Gipson, Mike Pennell, and Armon Watts. Fast forward to this year, after a huge offseason for Ryan Poles, he goes out and gets left edge DeMarcus Walker, who had 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and 16 quarterbacks for the Tennessee Titans last year. Right edge Rasheem Green, who is the projected starter as of right now, with 3.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, and 8 quarterback hits for the Houston Texans. Justin Jones, we already went through his stats. And then Andrew Billings from the Las Vegas Raiders with 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hits. Along with that, we have rookie Zachh Pickens, we have rookie Gervon Dexter Sr., we have Trevis Gipson, and Dominque Robinson coming in. Those new group alone had 8.5 more sacks last year, 12 more tackles for loss, and 18 more quarterback hits. Will, I mean, right there alone on paper, it's insanely better, and I think Bears fans are really underestimating what this defensive line can do. Who are you most excited about out of the gate on the new depth chart?
Honestly, I'm excited about both of our rookies, Zachh Pickens and Gervon Dexter, because I'm assuming that they're going to have Gervon play 1 technique and Zach play the 3 technique. And I just think the energy, when you look at their raw athletic scores, the energy and athleticism that they're bringing to the table, it's going to be some serious penetration up the gut that's going to cause a lot of quarterbacks to be uneasy on their spots, therefore accelerating the time of the passes coming out, giving Tremaine and TJ and Jack opportunities to break on the ball, even our secondary. So I'm super excited about the potential of both those guys coming in and playing a pivotal role in increasing the pressures that we're getting right up the gut.
So we do, and I agree with that completely. I think that there's much more depth and size and strength just overall from the interior defensive line. But you go to the edges, and one guy that I think that no one is talking about enough is DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus Walker had a career year last year with the Tennessee Titans. I am most excited about him out of anyone on the defensive line because he brings a veteran presence. He's on a prove-it contract for the next 3 years. But they have a lot of 7 sacks is no joke. I mean, do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think about DeMarcus Walker before we start jumping into a little bit more about Rasheem Green?
Well, when I look at DeMarcus Walker, like I said, I've been following him since his Florida State days. So, like his athleticism, his ability to not only just get pressure on the quarterback, but stop the run. And that's one thing you got to look at as well. Like he's a heavier type defensive end, 6'4", 270, just like Rasheem Green. So they can set the edges. They can stop the run, but also get pressure on the quarterback as well. And I see him on 3rd down moving inside on a lot of passing downs to the 3 technique to get more interior pressure on the quarterback. So if you've been looking at his workouts on Twitter, like his feet are nimble, his swim moves, everything is so fluid where he can disengage, he can keep the lineman off of him, but also at the same time simultaneously get that pressure that's needed to rush, like a tenth of a second or a second to whether it's a slant or a 3 route or a 1 route to cause that quarterback to come off the spot or get penetration where he's hitting backs in the backfield and create more tackles for loss. Like his overall body of work just plays a vital role in what we're trying to do in this attacking 4-3 scheme that Matt Eberflus is running.
I agree. I mean, I like that and it's good that you have a guy who can play both positions on the defensive line. He can cause havoc on the outside and absolutely cause havoc up the middle, which is something that's rare because, like you said, in today's NFL, a lot of these guys are built specifically for that one position. Mm-hmm. He's definitely a bigger edge, but he has the ability, and we've seen it in those Twitter workouts. Make sure you guys go check out DeMarcus Walker's Twitter. That's where he's been posting most of them. He is absolutely ripping it up. And you raised a good point, too, is that you have Rasheem Green on the other side of the ball, who's pretty much the exact same type of player. Mm-hmm. And he was on a terrible Houston Texans defensive line last year, still had 3.5 sacks, still got back to the quarterback, he had 8 quarterback hits and 5 tackles for loss. You give him a little bit of help along with Justin Jones, who also had no help last year and still was also getting pressure. This entire defensive line is going to benefit tremendously off each other. And you have the young rookies come in. You have a young Dominque Robinson and still a young but a veteran Trevis Gipson coming in. I don't know, man. The defensive line to me, I think they're 15 times better than last year. And they're going to cause a ton of problems. But that's just me. I know a lot of people disagree. I know that for a fact.
Oh, yeah. And there's a hidden gem when you get a chance. Take a look at Terrell Lewis from Alabama. He's with the Rams, but we got him now. The Rams really use him out of place. But if he puts his hand in the dirt, like he can get pressure on the quarterback as well. So like he might be a sleeper if we don't make any acquisitions before camp to get one of those 53-man roster spots. But I think we're all anticipating an acquisition, if nothing else, just to come in and be a situational pass rusher. But I think he right out the gate, he could potentially be a surprise gem that might make the 53-man squad or worst case, the practice squad.
Well, DeAnthony Jones as well, from Houston, he's going to be a problem as well. He's going to fight for that last roster spot, probably on the defensive line. And then also you have Travis Bell, which, drafted. He was a drafted defensive lineman. There's a good likeliness that he will make this roster, but there's so much depth there. There's so much hunger at that position. Guys are just going to be going after the quarterback. They're going to be off the chain. That's all I'm going to say is that everyone's
look at our first, let's say 4 games. Okay, well, Green Bay, they're going to run that offense through AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, because they're not going to let Jordan Love come out and just chuck it 30-40 times. Because let's be honest, they did the same thing with Aaron last year. Like they ran a ton, especially against us. When you look at both games, we got a heavy dosage of Dillon and Jones. Then you look at Tampa. Now Tampa Bay, they'll probably throw it a little bit more because they got my guy down there, Mike Evans. I think they still got what's the other wide receiver? I know at one point in time we were thinking about getting. He broke his leg down in Tampa Bay.
Man.
I can't remember his name, but they don't really have a running game, so that means that you got to rely on Baker Mayfield to chuck it to those guys. Which again, if we get that interior pressure, like we might end up with 3 or 4 or 5 picks that game. Then you got the Chiefs. What are the Chiefs going to do? You think the Chiefs going to run the ball or they going to pass it? The Broncos, like they got Jerry Jeudy, they got that other wide receiver. I can't think of his name. For the Broncos, but they don't really have the running game because they cut the guy that got the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, Melvin Gordon, that fumbled a lot. So when you look at the first 4 games, other than the Packers, I think the other 3 will be heavy passing. So with us getting a heavy dosage of interior pressure, because I watched that game Tennessee when DeMarcus Walker played against the Chiefs, and he sacked Mahomes, I think twice. And when I tell you the interior pressure was because it's causing Mahomes to get off his spot, like that's why I think the game is going to be way more competitive than people are saying. Because we can sit here and predict and forecast all day, but when you look at the dynamics of the team that we have right now, it's designed inside out where the interior is going to be, as it stands right now, the culprit in getting the most pressure from that front four.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I mean, this defense, we said it before, is going to be a top 10 defense.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt in my mind. These guys are hungry. There's a good system, and they are all meant to work with each other. Kind of like when the Cubs put together their team back in 2016. A lot of people were like, yeah, they got talent there. But everyone went to that all-star level because all of them were good in their own ways, and they were built perfectly to flow. And
Correct.
that's what Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus and Alan Williams have done with this defense. And it applies very well to the defensive line. Now, Will, so we've already talked to everybody about how this defensive line is going to be good, but they could still get better. And there's still time for it. Bears still have over $30 million in cap left for the incoming season. They still might extend some guys, but let's say that they go out and they sign a free agent. I see you got a couple names on your famous whiteboard behind us, but if you were to sign anybody on your free agency list behind everybody, give us a couple names of people and why.
Now, if we break up the category free agency versus a trade, on the free agency side, I would definitely probably look at signing Yannick what is it? Is it Yannick Akagwe or Agagwe?
Nakagwe, yep.
Yeah, because he's a predator. That's what he does. He gets pressure on the quarterback. And at the end of the day, I know everyone's talking about his interrupt to run effectively, but what are we paying him for? Like, realistically, we want him to come in and get us off the field on third down. Let's be honest. The other free agent that I would take a stab at is Justin Houston, because Justin Houston, he's been very productive in the last 5-10 years. He's been good for 8-10 sacks, and overall, he's a veteran leader, even though I think he's 34. It'll realistically be a one-year deal anyway. Like, let's be honest, as a stopgap until we get cursed from Florida State next year in the first round of the draft. So when you look at on the free agent side, those are the two that I would target. Now on the trade side, Chase Young, interesting name. It's just you would really be taking a chance. Yeah, like 1.5 sacks the last 2 years. Because I don't think that Washington is going to extend him long term, because they just extended the run pain. They gave Jonathan Allen a bunch of money. Then Sweat, he's up for an extension as well. So I don't see them dumping $100 million into their front four. But another surprise though is Bryce Huff from the Jets, because when you look at their depth chart at edge, like I think he's like fourth or fifth, and he's young, he's talented. So I think he would be a great addition to our defensive line room, because he's great at getting to the quarterback. He has nice bend when he get around the corner. So he's more of a speed rusher though. And then of course, one of my other favorites that I hope that we could make an intra-division trade is Danielle Hunter, because if they're converting to a 3-4 in Minnesota, he knows that he's not a good fit. He knows that, okay, he has another deal left. If he wants to get paid, he needs to maximize his talents in a 4-3 versus a 3-4, because he won't get the same level of productivity in a 3-4 defense. So, I wouldn't mind kicking the bucket and giving old Quessy a call and saying, look, let's take him off the books. We'll give you a third round of 2024. And, we could probably extend Danielle for about 4 years at about, I would say, $50 million. And we got a cornerstone to go with Curse when we pick him from Florida State next year. Now we're set at the edge now, and then DeMarcus Walker and those guys, we got kind of like what Philly got. Like Philly got a NASCAR package, because I don't care who start, everybody's gonna get enough snaps. It's gonna be enough snaps to go around for everybody to stay fresh. Meet your numbers, because Philadelphia got 72 sacks from their front four last year. That's unheard of. So that's a lot. So if we could get that type of production, even if we can get, because we only had 20 sacks last year, even if we can get 40, 50 sacks and just give the back seven time to cover and give Tremaine time to get down the middle of the field and cause havoc. Hey,
watch out.
we at a minimum, we'll be top 3 in the NFC, like hands down.
Hey, well, love having you always on because you're speaking my language. And I think Bears fans need to see that. I know that we have a ton to offer, and we're going to be talking about it a ton over the next couple of weeks. We got a couple guests coming on that are going to definitely be able to relate to the defensive line position, dropping a little hint for everybody that's watching there. But it's going to be a lot of fun this upcoming season, and training camp is right around the corner. So we're really going to see that come out. But Will, before we close out, if you had to predict the number of sacks that this defensive line is going to have, how many are they bringing to the Chicago Bears this year?
I'm going to go on record and say 45.
45? That's, like you said, that's over double last year.
Yes.
And that's a ton more pressure. And you divide that between, you divide that between 9 guys. It's 5 sacks a guy. I would take that. And it's not going to be that way because defensive tackles specifically don't get as many.
Right.
So, DeMarcus Walker gets 10 this year. Dominque Robinson gets 5,
Trevis
Green
Gipson,
gets 7.
He gets 7. Green gets 7. And that's not including what we're going to get from Jack Sanborn or TJ Edwards or even Noah Sewell, because he's a great pass rusher. So, so as a whole, I can see us getting eclipsing about 60 with the athletes we got on the back 7. And if those guys get that level of interior pressure, I can see those sacks that we got last year almost tripling at a minimum.
And you got to remember that our number 1 sack leader last year was our free safety in Jaquan Brisker. So he can get after it too.
Right.
I know, not great, but
right.
He can do it.
Yeah, but we don't want a repeat of that. That, like, at the end of the day, if our strong safety is leading the team in sacks, that's not going to bode well for us reaching our floor wins of 11 or ceiling wins of 15.
That's right. That's right. And Will and I talked about that in our last episode together. So if you guys are betting people, put the low at 11, the high at 15, because the Bears are going to cause a ton of problems this year. But Will, as always, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, my man.
Hey, Nick, thanks for having me as always.
Absolutely. And with that, guys, thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Roti, and have a great rest of your day.